Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal, production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to, of course, another Metaltober video. Now, 2 weeks ago, I did a video of basically me showing at least 5 album covers with, of course, with bands' mascots as being their most scariest form, which is basically the title of the video was Band Mascots' Most Scariest Forms. Again, just me showing at least 5 album covers that were seen as their spookiest as well. So I decided to do a follow-up to that where instead of just focusing on band mascots, we're just focusing on just album covers in general. So definitely that's why the title is 5 Spooky Album Covers. So with that, let's definitely get right in. I guess for the first off, we're going to just go at least with the 3 CDs here, because again, there's at least 3 CDs and 2 records, so therefore 5 album covers. So let's just at least start off with the CDs here. So the first one here is the album cover for, of course, the debut Angel Witch album, which sooner or later I will do, of course, a album of the week on this one, since, well, it's pretty much by December it'll be reaching its 40th anniversary. Anyways, now the reason let me kind of take this one off real quick. I'll put on there. Oops. Now, the reason I probably picked this, I mean, it usually by now this might seem very ordinary, but there is a little bit of an ominous feel to this. I know I've got a little issues pronouncing that word. Still, though, there's just something mysterious feel about this one. I mean, this is an old painting, actually. This is actually a painting, actually. It wasn't just painted for this album. It was actually, I think, an old painting from old centuries ago. I'm not going to try and go and act like I am an art expert. Still, though, there is definitely, I mean, just by the whole depiction of everything, it's supposed to be, I guess, in many ways, a depiction of hell, actually. Again, and the thing is, again, it's an old painting, but there is a bit, but the thing is, because of it being an old painting, it does add a little bit of that spooky factor to it anyways. I mean, come on. Again, for anybody who's, again, is very young and was probably going into a record store, and this was probably in the record racks, they probably would have been at least a little bit somewhat spooked by this, especially if you were to look at the back cover or so on. I mean, there might be a cheesy feature to some of it, and it's probably now by nowadays standards is a little bit ordinary, but for the time, this was a pretty spooky cover, and there is definitely a ominous feel to this artwork anyways. So that's the best way I can do to actually summon up at least the artwork for the first Angel Witch album. So there you go. That's of course is the first pick here. Let's put this over here. Alright, so the second one is the artwork for the second full-length album from, of course, Metal Church. That's The Dark. We actually get the album cover out anyways. Now, again, it's almost the same thing, at least with with the Angel Witch album. By nowadays standards, this is probably not nearly as creepy as it probably would have seemed probably back in 1986 when this first came out. But there is a spooky feel to this album cover, and the thing is, even to me, this always kind of came up as probably the most creepiest artworks, at least especially in Metal Church's discovery, unless unless you want to mention Hanging in the Balance. but that is for other reasons. Trying to add some humor into here. Still, though, there is a little creep factor. Of course, I should mention that this was drawn by the late Don Brodingham, who, of course, has done artworks for, like, Anthrax, and Metallica, and Motley Crue, and at least, Axe, and just some of those bands I can at least name. Alright, just for naming here. I'm not going to try and name off every single band, at least artwork done. He's also done artwork for books, including Stephen King's books as well. And if you really keep in that mind frame, this does seem like it would at least be fit for also at least a horror novel to begin with, just based off its cover art. And anyways, I mean, the reason why it comes off as spooky to me is because of, I mean, just look at it. And if you really look even closer, and it's why it's kind of spooky to me in general, is because of, if you look where the doorway, where it's so dark there, just very lightly, just very dark, you can make out at least 2 red eyes. And the thing is, they're drawn is very creepy as well. They're drawn. It's drawn, I would say, to where it actually would come off pretty creepy, and just drawing a bunch of 2 eyes and just being so very, very bright, but so dark, giving it again more of a mysterious feel. So it definitely, where it's almost kind of just a part of the background, which kind of why it's so spooky to begin with. And it's drawn so perfect as well. So that's why I think it definitely deserves to be on this list. And it's why I definitely, it's the first one, one of the first ones I picked anyways. So there. Definitely, I know I don't want to ramble on too much, but definitely it is a pretty creepy cover art anyways. So The Dark from Metal Church. That is the second pick for the video here. Now, the third and last CD here is, of course, I mean, this was in the band mascot's most serious form videos, but even as an artwork in general, this is still probably by far one of the spookiest album covers in my collection. That's, of course, again, is Court in the Act from Saint. Let me kind of take this out of the myself anyways. But just look at that. The reason I'll just recite the same things I at least said towards this. Because of the fact that it has that almost very old, almost movie poster feel to it, like from like the 1950s and 1960s. It just comes off looking absolutely creepy. Look at the way that our judge here, which again, one of the earliest forms of at least their mascot, the judge, but look how he's just drawn there. And look how he just comes off. This right here is absolutely terrifying. This is probably, again, one of the most spookiest album covers as well. And it does definitely fit with the whole atmosphere of the album as well, to me, personally. I mean, it's not heavy, but it does come off. And I think, again, it does a good job of fitting with the atmosphere of the album as well. But it is just a absolutely creepy cover. And it's why it belongs on this list. So, and I mean, also, this is the kind of stuff you always see on even very obscure prog rock albums, so from the early 1970s. Definitely just has that feel, and for even a metal album of this caliber, it works as well. But it's just absolutely creepy to me. I know by nowadays standards, it might come off rather cheesy, but to me, it's absolutely terrifying, especially if you're to look in the mind frame of at least of the time period of at least the early to mid 80s. So that definitely comes off rather terrifying. So there we go. There's at least the 3 CDs. Now it's time to the 2 records, and it's pretty much all from the same band. Alright, and this is a classic band anyways. One of the most immortal metal bands, or at least immortal bands of its own time area as well. And I mean, of the time, especially when they first came out. These guys also are listed as one of the first metal bands as well. But the one for the second of the 2 records is, of course, Sabbath, Blaze Sabbath. Of course, from Black Sabbath. Of course, I should point out, before I really get into it, is that this artwork, of course, was drawn, I mean, both the front and back was drawn by famous, I know I said famous, which was absolutely dumb, but famous artist Drew Struzan, who is best known for doing, I'm not going to list off the name of movie posters he's worked on. I don't. At that point, it would be even more. It would probably be easier to list off the albums that Don Brodingham has drawn, and all the books he's probably drawn. But though the list of books will be on the same at least at least the same number of movie posters that Drew Struz on his drawn, and from the time period to at least the 80s or the early 90s, yeah. That'll be a lot. I know I might have made a little mistake there, but still, you can correct me on that if you want to. Still, though, the reason why this is so spooky, and he is a great artist. There is no doubt Drew Struzan is why a great artist, and it's why he was picked to do a lot of those great movie posters from the 1970s to 1980s. But this hole right here is absolutely creepy. The way it just comes off, it's also terrifying as well, especially for 1973 or 74. If you were to walk into at least a record store and see this on the record racks, and being a very young kid, this would probably would terrify you of actually picking it up. You wouldn't want to. Instead, you would walk away with your eyes closed. It absolutely is definitely one of the most creepiest album covers, though we'll get to the absolute creepiest album cover that Black Sabbath had, at least the artwork that has graced a Black Sabbath record. But this one is not too far behind. Even though it's not my favorite Black Sabbath album, I know that might be seen as blasphemy, but it's far from my favorite. But this is still at least a good album from Black Sabbath, but the artwork itself is, even the back cover is almost just as creepy as well, especially of what it leads into right here, this absolute madness. But it still comes off as absolutely terrifying. Just a great cover art as well. Definitely was most fantastic. So there you go. That's the fourth one here. And finally the fifth one, which doesn't need any other introduction. It's the first Black Sabbath album. And the artwork till this day is still the most spookiest album covers of all time. I mean, that's why it is number one. Look at this. This, even as a kid, always creeped me out. Even if you're trying to look at this in the dark with the flashlight, it's still goddamn absolutely creepy. Even in the daylight right now, it's still absolutely creepy. But it just adds to the whole atmosphere of the record. And it's probably why it's great with the back cover on the front, and there's no band picture. It's why many people was a little bit turned off at times, maybe from Black, or a little bit were skeptical of what to expect from this. Because you weren't going to know what it was. I mean, just looking at the back cover and just seeing the titles, you really wouldn't know what that this was going to be if you were very new to Black Sabbath. You didn't know what the hell this was going to end up being, and then when putting it on, you were even just as taken back. You weren't going to expect it was going to be this heavy, at least for 1970. So, and it's just, again, though crazy enough, because how so spooky and so iconic this artwork is, this lady right there is now getting a Funko Pop. I have to add that in. It's now getting a Funko Pop. But in that regard, in return, is taking away the creepiness, because that Funko Pop isn't really that creepy to begin with. So it kind of robs a little bit of what makes this so goddamn creepy to begin with. It's more collector's item. And I've got plenty of Funko Pops already, but the thing is, why would you turn this into a Funko Pop when the main reasons why people actually dig the lady on here is because of it's spooky as shit. Look at this. That's why many people bought this fucking record. And it's always, at least it's considered the most iconic record. It's because of this. It's because it's so goddamn spooky. It wouldn't be on this list if it wasn't considered spooky to begin with. So there you go. There is at number one, the very first Black Sabbath album. So there you go. There was five spooky album covers. If you have any suggestions, or what do you consider your most spooky album covers, or what do you consider, leave all that in the comment section below. But so if there's any other else if you have to at least comment on any on here, definitely let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what your thoughts are anyway. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed. This is Thrash Sam out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.